strange thing, now that I sit here and think about it. In the movies, Marvel is clearly doing a much, much better job than any DC-related intellectual property. And yet, out in the real world, I don't think I would hesitate to say at all that DC has a much, much bigger presence. I see more people walking around with Batman and Superman and Green Lantern stuff on their bodies any given day of the week than I do Marvel stuff. I think maybe the sole exception to that at this point would probably be Captain America stuff. But really, you just see so much more DC out in the world. And that's why I continue to be so perplexed about why it seems to be so damn hard to get a decent DC movie off the ground. Obviously, we're talking about Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. I just got back from seeing it with a very, very good friend of mine, and my niece actually asked me for a child-friendly review of the movie. So, kiddo, you got it. Child-friendly, no profanity, no wild, rude gesture-laced gesticulations. But definitely spoilers. This is typically where I jump into the middle of one of these things with a long version or a short version. But we're not going to do that here because the movie sort of warrants a little bit of discussion. The throat thing. The short version, which isn't very short, is if you're somebody who's going to be really, really irritated about folks who have messed with the core designs and functionalities of a particular comic book character, yeah, you're probably not going to like this movie very much. If you're somebody who's just going into a movie for entertainment, it's not an unentertaining movie. It's really, really not an entertaining movie. What I found to be fundamentally the worst parts of this film were a small number of things. Unfortunately, they also happen to be big things. The story in the movie is, for the most part, sound. I have no problems with the way that Ben Affleck plays Batman. I think Ben Affleck's a fantastic Batman. And more importantly, I think Ben Affleck is a realistic Batman. A Batman who is, in his mid-40s, and who has been doing what he's been doing, and who has undergone some of the things that he's undergone. I think he's a very realistic Batman. And to be perfectly frank, I think, and I have thought this since the very beginning, I think the portrayal of how the world is handling Superman, unfortunately, disgustingly, is pretty spot on. Where the problems with this movie come in, and there are problems, and Master Cortez, if you're listening, I agree with you. The problems with this movie don't stem from any of the people that they got to play characters. They stem from the story that they put those characters in. And here's where we start getting into the spoilery part of things. And really, the single biggest part of this revolves around Batman. Two things. One, the Batman does not kill. I realize that there are going to be some people standing up and talking about how some of the Batman's earlier comics, that one or two people were killed, or that it was implied that he killed one or two people. And that may very well be, and I've watched a considerable amount of film online talking about those things. But the modern incarnation of what everybody knows and loves, and generally one of the accepted facets of Batman, is that he does not kill. And unfortunately, that just doesn't hold up in this movie. I won't go into details as to where, but not only does Batman kill, he rather indiscriminately kills. The other really, really big thing is Batman is supposed to be intelligent. He's supposed to be one of the smartest people on Earth, intelligent. And for the most part, that intelligence comes off in this movie. But for one or two really, really key points that completely change the outcome of the entire movie. The anger and wrath that he feels towards Superman for the fate of the employees in the Wayne building in Metropolis, and indeed for the losses everywhere. You know what? That's understandable. But at the point, and again, spoilers here if you haven't been to see the movie, and this isn't really very spoilery because they stomp all over this in the trailers. There's a part where Bruce and Alfred are down in the Batcave, and Bruce Wayne is talking about how if there's even, a 1% chance that Superman could turn out to be a gigantic space prick, then we need to destroy him. Now, you're treading so heavily and so roughly on the heart and soul of one of the things that makes Batman great. And unfortunately, you're doing it in the wrong direction with a statement like that. Do I think it's justifiable that Bruce is angry? Yes, I do. Do I think that it's justifiable that he have a countermeasure for Superman? Do I think that's right in line with a lot of things that have happened? Hey, look, wild gesticulation. Sorry, kiddo, but there wasn't any rude gestures. Do I think that's right in line with Batman? Yes, I do. Anybody who's ever seen the wonderful Justice League Doom animated movie or read any of the associated comics, it shouldn't be a shock to anybody that Bruce likes to keep a small supply of kryptonite on hand in case Superman decides he wants to take a walk on the wild side, which he has done notable times. So do I think his wanting a solution for the demigod that's wandering around in bright blue spandex in his world, do I think that's out of the question? No, I do not. Where it gets out of the question and really where it really ruins a lot of the movie and a lot of the motivation at that point is instead of we need to develop a way, first off, I need to go have a conversation with this guy and find out what his motives are. I need to do a little bit more about finding what his motives are. And secondly, he hasn't necessarily done anything to prove himself evil yet, but in the event that he does, we need to find a way to neutralize him. That would have been perfectly in line with the character. And they could have proceeded more or less on par with the story in the movie, but they chose not to do that. Instead, if there's even a 1% chance that this person could wake up on the wrong side of the bed and burn down a building, we have to destroy him. Which again, not only falls back to the whole the Batman does not kill, and the Batman does not plan to kill. He plans to neutralize, but he doesn't plan to kill. That is an excellent representation of some of the other, again, I'm trying not to spoil that much about the movie. That's an excellent representation of some of the other really dumb things from a story standpoint that happened. Could you have done it a different way and still told your story almost exactly the way you wanted to? Yes, but you just didn't think about it. You just didn't devote enough attention and enough hallowed consideration for the IP that you were messing around with. And that is one of the reasons why I think people have so many problems with this movie. Batman really is nothing more than a thug in a lot of different parts in this movie. And is not portrayed as very intelligent at all. And that's a pretty big betrayal for a lot of us that were going to go see a Batman movie. Completely and totally putting that aside for a second, I want to address a couple of things that I've heard a lot of people say. No, I don't think Lois Lane is helpless. I think she plays the part of a journalist relatively well. I continue to enjoy Amy Adams in that role. There are a lot of people who gripe about the fact that she just spends so much time being helpless. And I don't feel that way at all. I really, really don't. I don't want to say anything else because there's, again, spoilers, but I really, really don't. I don't think she spends a whole lot of time. Does she spend a lot of time being in a bad spot in the movie? Well, yes, she is one of the principal characters, so what you gonna do? Wonder Woman, absolutely fantastic. Hans Zimmer composed the music for this movie, him and Junkie XL, and the thematic elements that they use for Wonder Woman's music are spot on. I want to say they're electric violins, and it's so cool. Wonder Woman's fantastic. She really, really is. She's fantastic in every scene that she's in. And I am stoked now more than ever for another for the next movie with Wonder Woman in it, full-length Wonder Woman feature. Totally stoked. I admit I had pretty massive misgivings about Gal Gadot putting on the headband, but she absolutely knocks it out of the freaking park. Goes toe-to-toe with anybody else who's on screen. Far too little time with her on the screen. Far too little time. Very, very sad. Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, the good and the bad. We're getting back to the whole fundamentally altering these characters, and Lex Luthor is one of the biggest big bads in the DC universe. Sorry about that. Camera freaked out a little bit. Jesse Eisenberg, one of the biggest villains in the DC universe, one of the biggest foes for Superman. And he's pretty consistent with the way that he's portrayed. In a lot of modern media, quietly drawing a veil over Gene Hackman's work. When you think about Lex Luthor, one of the most prominent places that he's displayed as an individual, other than the comic books, is in the animated series, and he's displayed relatively consistently in the animated series as being, tall, strong, built, but more than that. For as much strength as he has in his body, so much more in his mind. For being, 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of anybody, and having complete and utter mockery for the justice system, knowing that he'll just be able to wiggle his way out of it, being successful in spite of being a horrible human being, and just being able to get out again. And Jesse Eisenberg is the antithesis of Lex Luthor. Never mind the obvious physical differences between the two, and there are many. Credit where it's due, he exudes a masterful amount of menace in certain scenes. And him sparring with the senator from Kentucky. Oh, why can't I think of her name? Real life, her name is... No, I can't remember. She's the girl who voices Elastigirl in The Incredibles. Why can't I think of her name? Holly Hunter, I think? Maybe? I'm going to go look that up real quick. Hold on. Nailed it. Holly Hunter. It's fun listening to her and Jesse Eisenberg go back and forth in the movie. It really, really is. But at no point when you look at Jesse Eisenberg's version of Lex Luthor, do you feel that he is cool and calm and collected? He almost feels like the Joker. He feels like the Joker's redheaded stepchild. Is what he feels like. There's so much of that barely controlled razor blade menace going on there, and with all the reboots that they're doing, it's a shame because I almost feel like he missed his calling as the Joker. I'm sure Jared Leto will be absolutely wonderful. I can't. That's not true. Jared Leto will be horrible. But as Lex Luthor, he totally misses the plot, and by the end of the movie, he's got a runny nose and is ranting and raving like an Arkham lunatic. Very disappointed with how they chose to go in that direction. Um, Luthor is also responsible for some of the big leaps in the plot. Huge spoilers here. He somehow, and this is a cornerstone to the movie's plot, so huge spoilers here, seriously. But he somehow figures out who Batman is, who Superman is, who Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Cyborg, and the Flash are. The others are a lesser known by all means. Cyborg, the Flash, and Aquaman are cameos. Very brief ones too. But he somehow figures out who that Superman is Clark Kent and that Batman is Bruce Wayne and you know that Clark Kent and Lois Lane are involved and that you know Batman has problems with the fact that he let family members die and in that respect that's very much right out of Lex Luthor's book. But there's no explanation about how he did it in this movie. You just jump straight into Lex Luthor knowing right out of the chute everything about all of these people. That's frustrating. It's very frustrating. There are several points in this movie when you go, wait a minute, how did we get there? How did he find out about that? That's very frustrating, and that's another big piece of the story that I had a problem with, and I think a lot of folks are going to have a problem with in this movie. Completely putting him aside for a second. Who else? We already said that Wonder Woman was stonking awesome. Yeah, but for a few small changes, this movie could have been exactly what everybody was looking for. Very sad. Very sad. Some comments to Zack Snyder. Everybody knows how Bruce Wayne's parents died. Don't do it again. Everybody, we get that. You don't need to tell that story again. You really don't. The dreams that Bruce Wayne was having, I understand that they were supposed to serve as a yardstick towards, you know, how paranoid Bruce is about, you know, Superman becoming, you know, all powerful and stuff. I'm yawning as I'm talking about this movie. Alas for such things. I understand that that's what that was supposed to have been, but they were utterly pointless to the story. And if you had told the story intelligently, they would have been completely and totally pointless. They would have been useless, even more useless than they already are. Very frustrating. Very frustrating. This was an alright movie. I won't say it's a great movie because they stomped all over some truly sacrosanct features of these characters, of these superheroes that we love so much. But it is a movie, it is an entertaining movie. And if you don't care so much about that, if you just want to go watch, you know, Batman throw Superman a whooping, which he does, then this is your movie. But even then, when I say that, the big fight scene between Batman and Superman was neat, but by the time that fight scene happens, you're just sitting there with your head in your hands going, this isn't justified. There are several different points in the movie where this could have been stopped if he hadn't just been written into a bad story. This isn't justified. Wake up. You know, I can't even, this is me talking here. I've been looking forward to watching Soups get his butt kicked on the big screen for a while now. I love The Dark Knight Returns. But you know what? Gosh darn it, if you watch that fits right in line with the Batman mythos. And you understand precisely why it's being done. In this one, by the time the big brawl rolls around, you're like, oh my God! How? No! It's so frustrating. And it makes me so sad. But for a few small changes, this could have been a great movie. Alas, it's not, and we'll just have to make do with more of those electric violins when Wonder Woman comes out. So looking forward to that. Yeah, this is a rental.